Hi, thanks for joining us for Devotionables, brief devotions for busy people. My name is Gabriel, and today I want us to talk about anger. Now, for some of you may think, Gabriel, you're not an angry person. I'm not an angry person. I want to suggest that maybe we are more angry than we like to allow ourselves to think about. And anger is something you really need to be careful. It's as Pastor Cook has reminded us here in a couple sermons recently, talking about spiritual warfare and some other conversations we've had as a staff. You know, the devil is always on the prowl, like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And anger is one of those things in your life, it's kind of a more acceptable sin in some ways, that he looks to put a wedge into your life, an opportunity, a foothold, Paul says in Ephesians. And I want us to just consider how we might do battle against anger. Obviously, we're going to look at Scripture, but I also want to commend this little book to you. It's by Ed Welch. It's called A Small Book About a Big Problem. And Ed Welch talks about 3 different kinds of anger. And he says there's covert anger, and that's maybe where most of us live. Covert anger may disguise itself as snarkiness, sarcasm, frustration. I'm not mad, I'm just frustrated, right? Well, frustration is low-grade anger. And then there's cold anger, and that's kind of scary too. You think about something like indifference or just the cold shoulder. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. I'm giving them the cold shoulder. And then obviously hot anger, and that's maybe what most of us think of when we consider anger, but all these things are really forms of anger, and if we allow them to take root in our lives, in our heart, it's hard to root out, and we can become unfruitful. James says this in James chapter 1, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." Now there's times we should be angry. We should have righteous indignation, like Jesus going into the temple and driving out those who were making his house of prayer for all nations, a den of thieves and robbers, right? There's certain times that you and I, we need to maybe be more angry than we are. But most of the time, anger in our lives is because we're not getting our way. I think it really goes back, step behind it. It's about control. That I want to be God in a particular situation, at a particular time and place in my life with certain people. And if I'm just going to be honest with you, kind of a moment of transparency, I see that most frequently in how I parent my children. I feel like I'm frustrated too frequently with my precious daughters. They're wonderful, and I feel like most of the time I'm frustrated really because they're not doing things in the manner which I would do them, the time frame which I would do them, and it's just called growing up, right? And you need to help them. You parent graciously and wisely and with long suffering, and yet I want to hit the microwave button and just go boom, all right, done. And so, but that's not how life works. The Lord in His kindness is being gracious to me and working on this in my heart. And so I want us to consider a couple things about anger that may be encouraging to you as well. When I was in a particular counseling class with Dr. Jeremy Pierre, he said that anger and fear are 2 sides of the same coin. And really it comes when you have something that you have that is being threatened, or something that you want that you can't have. So, a desire denied or a treasure threatened. And we respond with fear and anger. But again, that's because we want control. We want to hang on tightly to these things. Like, it's mine, I'm in control, I'm in charge. And so when I'm feeling anxious, it's because I don't feel in control. When I'm feeling angry, it's because I can't control, right? I think they're coming kind of from the same spot from behind. And something I heard Ed Welch say recently, and it was on a video, it might be in this book too, I can't recall to be honest with you at the moment, but he takes us to later in James. In James chapter 4, beginning here, just in 13 through 14, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such town and spend a year there and trade and make profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." And then notice here in verse 15. "Instead, you ought to say, If the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. That was a real kind of a pill for me, a medicine in a good way to hear that. Because you think about this idea of control, fear and anger coming out of kind of a lack of control, wanting to be God in certain situations, to control certain situations. No, God is sovereign over all things. Right? We say it, we get it here. We don't always feel it here, and when we're in the situations, we want to work things out. But the heartbeat of my life should be, if the Lord wills. And that's not to say you just you don't engage in things, right? You still pray, you minister, you pray, you minister, but you do so under the umbrella that God is in control of every moment of your life, every breath you take, every decision, every city you live in, every red light that causes you to stop when you're in a hurry, every green light that graciously lets you get to a place on time or in a hurry. This comes from the sovereign, wise, good hand of God. So I just want to encourage you to that. As you fight anger, you may just start back to, it's a place of humility, saying, Lord, I'm acting like I'm in control, that I can control this situation, I can control this person. You are in control. Help me to humbly serve you and those around me today. So, lessons on anger, root it out. Don't give the enemy a foothold.